Okay. Annoyingly, we still have neither of these two locked in. Very strange. Okay. Notes and observations, skimming through Lauren Roottrees' diary. The book, published in 1965, consists of diary entries that stretch from 1940 to 65. The most important event that much of the diary and Lauren's thoughts revolve around was the loss of her husband, Jacob. Jacob died in the final months of World War II while Lauren was pregnant. It was left her to raise her son, Clark, alone. Lauren never remarried, and she only had one child. Clark. By skimming the pages of the diary, you glean the following information. She was the granddaughter of Elias and Gwyneth on her father's side. Her mother's family was called the Coysals, but she hardly ever mentions them. Her father, who she always refers to as Pop, was the head lawyer for the Roottrees Candy Company and helped write a legal document called the Clanstead Trust. That's cool, because based on this image, Pop is on the left. Therefore, this is him here. That also means I can probably fill in Elias Jr. as the only other male who appears in that photograph. It's clear from context that the Roottrees have internal shorthand names for different generations of her family. Lauren uses them often. 5 pieces, the first generation of children. Next generation, Lauren's generation. 3 spirits, the generation after Lauren's, including her son. An entry entitled Complaints, written in 1953. This entry seems to focus specifically on one of Lauren's family members, Gwyn, who is on the notable Roottrees list. It seems that everyone has something to complain about. Gwyn, as an only child, complained of loneliness. I told her that being expected to watch after 3 younger brothers didn't feel like a blessing, but it fell on deaf ears. Male. 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 Gwyn is an only child, but we know that already. During summer, when I went to stay with her and Aunt Margot, I hoped she would be the sister I never had and that I'd do the same for her. I even tried to dye my hair blonde to fit in with the 2 of them. What a mess. But she just complained. To her, I was the lucky cousin. Now she's off living the glamorous life while I'm stuck here with Clark. I must admit, seeing her everywhere contributes to my unhappiness. Her visage stares at me now from my coffee table. She gets to be in starlet and tell tales of how she gallivants all around the world, kissing the likes of Harry Lane and Wild Bill Williams. She's the first Roottrees woman to be anything other than a housewife, and I'm jealous. If I were not a single mother, could I make my own way in this world? Not immediately sure how true this is, but I'm gonna fill it in anyway. Da, 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 da. There were two M's up here, weren't there? So that may be correct. But I'm off topic. A girl with all the luck in the world was jealous of me, and now, though I've been undoubtedly burdened by a terrible tragedy, I'm also lucky to be born into a family that can support me for eternity. I can raise a child without worry, unlike countless other widows. If any of them were to hear me complaining, they would rightfully scoff, just like I do at Gwyn. Starlet was a magazine that started with the colorization of film and went on to about 1964. Generally, it was a tabloid with a focus on famous actors and actresses. It didn't go into many other aspects of filmmaking or Hollywood news. Defunct tabloid about actors and actresses. Likely to have gossip about old Hollywood. Nothing relevant found. Guess I'm spelling it wrong, obviously. Gwen Roottrees was often in Starlet. Most mentions around the time of her divorce in 1958 from Wild Bill Williams. Clearly no relation to his actual name. The gossip is speculative and full of tabloid stereotypes. Some of it focuses on the fact that when she announced her divorce, she also announced she was pregnant again. Others mention the rumour is Wild Bill had multiple affairs, which left her heartbroken. There's also an interview from earlier, in mid-1957, where she was asked about her last name. She answered, "The power of a name is undeniable. My grandfather constantly preached the importance of family names and honouring them. My father decided to bless me with a famous name. There's nothing wrong with Cornwall, but Roottrees has power. My husband, similarly, goes by Wild Bill. It's an infamous name he repurposed for himself because he didn't have the benefit of being born with a famous one. But Wild, combined with the alliteration Williams, is particularly memorable. Though we've relocated to Paris, I know your readers love to keep up with my husband, so consider this a Starlet exclusive about both of us. Wild Bill and I have a child on the way, and we're sticking with the Roottrees for the last name, not Williams. But we also plan to lean to alliteration. That's how we'll honour both of our family names for the next generation." An R, then. One of these two. Gwen. Don't know which R, but it's an R. Wild Bill Williams is mentioned many times throughout the magazine's lifespan, with stories and gossip about who had been seen with in public, blondes mostly. Three specific passages stand out. The first mentions one of his first roles was under his real name, Walter Forsyth. Lovely. Second is an interview. Though he doesn't mention her by name, you determine from context he's talking about Gwyn Roottrees. An apology to all the ladies. I'm actually taken. Earlier this year, I did a friend a favour. He was directing a war movie and asked me to play a small part. Wouldn't you know it, he cut me from the picture. And just ribbing, it wasn't his fault. Apparently the studio didn't want to pay for a star of my calibre. I got the last laugh, though. I met someone. She spent most of the film crying. She was playing a soldier's wife. But even through the tears, she was incredible. I know I tend to have a reputation, but this one's true love. I only have eyes for her. Ironically, the third is a rumour that his divorce from Gwyn was due to multiple affairs, including one with another actress. An American reader on vacation in Paris claims to have overheard Wild Bill and Gwyn arguing in public while she was holding a baby and visibly pregnant. Not long after, Gwyn announced she was divorcing Wild Bill and also that she was pregnant again, giving this rumour more credibility. Wild Bill Williams was the leading man of some non-notable movies in the 1950s. He appeared in an adventure movie called Fortune Favours the Grave, which is yet to be released for home audiences. He was known for his good looks and off-screen romances, especially with blondes. He was married 4 different times to 4 different actresses. There's a famous Hollywood rumour that he even approached Marilyn Monroe at a party and that she was already aware of his reputation. And leads back to the same place. Cool. And this is a bit of a dead end, and yeah. I kind of expected as much. Okay. An entry called Dynasty from Lauren Roottrees' diary, written in 1958. It focuses on the day her grandfather Elias announced he would step down as president of the Roottrees Candy Company and the meeting to determine his successor. I wish I had been a fly on the wall today. Clancy told me that everyone got quite heated. Grandad was furious none of his sons would take over as president, but that's what he gets for holding on to it so long. With architects, preachers, and lawyers, nobody's got time for candy. Architect. Maybe. Yeah. That means you are a preacher as well, probably. Indeed. Nice. Locking in the top section. Lovely, lovely, lovely. So, with the 5 pieces refusing to step up, it came down to his next gens. Pop argued at length that the company should stay with our branch of the family, since we still have the Roottrees name. I'm not even sure Clancy would have wanted it, but he's the one who was volunteered. Instead, it ended up going to Zack. Even though his surname doesn't match the candy, he's the firstborn son of the firstborn 5-piece. I'm not sure how that's relevant to running a company, but Grandad has always had very particular views when it came to his bloodline. Zachariah or Zach? Dunno. I asked Clancy if it ever came up that a woman could take over. After all, Angie's older than Zach, and I'm the next oldest of us all, but he just laughed. I'll never forget the cuss words Pop used when he told Mara it wouldn't go to us. Mother, ever the quick-witted, at least with catty remarks, countered back, maybe they wanted it to go to the only member of the family who looks like he samples the product. So, stereotyping slightly, but that's probably you. Da, 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 da. An entry entitled Sam, written in 1963. From a previous entry, you learn that alias Roottrees had given in to his wife and announced that Sam, an obscure relative, was to be included in family gatherings. Gwyneth had been pushing to include Sam for quite some time. Lauren writes, "Why Sam? I have many distant relatives I've never met. After all, Granny had sisters and Grandad had a brother or two. But I was told to trim their branches from the family tree, so why is Sam special? Nothing adds up, and I'm not the only one to realise." Angie summoned all the next gens to a secret meeting in Zach's office. Gwyn's in Paris, but the rest of us, including the Miracles boys, spent ages trying to unravel the mystery. I didn't recognise Sam at Uncle Junior's wedding to Patsy last year. At the reception, when I asked who Sam was, Pop shushed me and said it was complicated. Oh boy, there's two of them. Well, that's a little bit of a dead end then. Other than that, I know it's one of them. Clancy swore he saw Sam working alongside the farmhands, EC and John, when he used to drive past the old Anderson farm on his way to work. Upon hearing that, Zach checked the records and managed to confirm all three are on the books. Ellie, Miracle's youngest, not my brother, even chimed in. Apparently, when he was riding his mini-bike along the farm a few weeks ago, Sam gave him some old tools and taught him how to make the bike's engine faster. None of us think that properly, for a multitude of reasons, but Eli certainly seems thrilled. At the end of the day, nothing explains why an outsider has cozied into family affairs, especially one who works on the farm of all places. Whatever happened to blood is thicker than syrup? Why is Grandad making an exception now? Yeah, and of course, there's two of them. Which one is it? Who knows? One of the final entries, called Clark, written in 1964. Clark's getting married and, in my opinion, far too young. He's barely 18, for God's sake, and Danielle isn't much older. But openly confronting them wouldn't make me a hypocrite. After all, Jacob and I got married at 16. Clark, like the rest of his generation, is a free spirit. What else do you call a group of kids growing up with more money than any one person can spend? They all aspire to be musicians and artists and dancers and all sorts of nonsense. The only one who has any discipline is Carl, but that's because Pop forced Clancy to send him to the academy. Maybe I'm just getting old, but our generation was never so bad. My brothers all seemed to pursue paths of knowledge, and the most rebellious thing any of us ever did was bring home someone who would be illegal to marry if we lived anywhere south of Pennsylvania. Pop seems to have gotten over it because Edward is set to take over his department once he retires. As for me, my first published book, Swashbuckle My Heart, is based on the pirate stories I used to invent with Jacob when we were walking in the woods after school. I think he'll be proud that Clark and I are carrying on his name. Even my cousins are doing well. Zach's not a bad president after all, and his sister seems to be doing a good job raising her twins. Gwyn is Gwyn, but at least she came out of the divorce with her head held high. She even told us she might come home next year so we can meet her kids. But they're free spirits. In any other family, they'd all end up on the streets, even Clark. Relevant, but I could also punch it into here. Also nothing relevant. Fine. Yeah, there's more bits in here, but I'm not sure I have enough surrounding information to make a whole lot of sense. So I think I can punch in that fairly safely. What else have we got? This was buried under a ton of other mail that Carl left in his inbox. It had a handwritten note attached that seemed personal. It's a flyer about a candidate for local office, Stephanie Jones. On the back is an excerpt from a newspaper article from the Butler County Times about her campaign. Stephanie may have grown up in an unconventional family, to say the least, but in her words it was still full of love. And now, around 22 years later, with a baby of her own due around Christmas, her message for voters is simply, "Love is our future." The handwritten note says, "Carl, I know we didn't see eye to eye when it comes to the candy company, but if you could talk to your girls about putting out a statement supporting Stephanie, she could use the publicity your daughters bring. Don't let our conflict spread to the next generation. CM." Got a couple of things to look at in here that I think are going to generate search results. And there aren't that many of this generation down here who are married. probably either down here or over here. Well, there's no probably about it. It is. You learned from an election results page that Stephanie Jones, a candidate for City Council, won her campaign on Election Day about a month ago. Very bare bones website of her campaign. It's simply a picture of her campaign mailer, and underneath it says, "Be sure to read the full article in the Butler County Times." The most recent mention of Stephanie Jones is a small report detailing the election results from last month's election. Stephanie apparently won. Find the full version of the newspaper clipping on the back of the campaign mailer, or most of it is unimportant. You do find out the following. Stephanie Jones, born Stephanie Lansdon until her marriage to local business owner Brian Jones, has lived in Butler County her whole life. Stephanie grew up in a home without a father. With my mother and her partner, I essentially had an entirely female influence. Though she's a distant cousin of the Roottrees, her mother Caroline, a local artist who has appeared on the front page of the Butler County Times in the past, has often come out opposed to the corporation's policies regarding deforestation of indigenous trees to expand their maple farms. Unlike my mother, I'm not a fighter. I want to bring love to the world. Okay, so she is down here. Stephanie Lansdon. In politics. Married to Brian Jones. And these two are both female. The mother is Caroline. An artist. Caroline Morden. Found a cover story about local art installations, including one by Caroline Morden. There isn't much about Caroline as a person. This is mostly a listing of art in Butler County. She seems to get top billing. Accompanying the story, there's an image of Caroline standing beside a large metal sculpture of a mermaid. It is captioned, "Caroline standing next to her sculpture Atlantis Burden." The sculpture is one of many works featured in her upcoming book, Self-Portrait Art and the Beauty of Women. According to a quote further down, Atlantis' burden is meant to symbolize a society split by indecision over whether women should be equals or something to protect. The picture on the front page has been added to your evidence. Caroline standing next to her sculpture. Really confident about all of that. See about this book then. Mostly black and white pictures of Caroline's art. The centerpiece is a series of full-colour nude self-portraits of different ages, stretching from 25 to 30. They certainly have not been added to your evidence. In the intro, Caroline talks about influences. She was one of the youngest in her generation, and in her late teens she felt betrayed when her sister Gwendoline and cousin Bonnie gave up on dreams to settle for boring men. She especially dislikes her brother-in-law, Dr. Wilson, who she describes as completely bogus. Their marriages led her to double down on her passions, art and the environment. She even married a man who was the opposite of boring, which was an overcorrection. She comes out strongly against the Roottrees company's effect on the local environment and rues how she was not able to convince her father Zach to make changes to policy. She also explains that her marriage to Mark led to one of the most volatile moments in her life, all negative, and that the only good thing he ever gave her was a daughter. Leaving them all behind for good was what pushed her to pursue her true love's art and the beauty of women. Yep, it's that same Zach. And we have a Mark over here. We've kind of hit a bit of a dead end there now. What else have we got? Photo has a note attached from your employer. Here's a bonus. When I pulled the water-damaged picture of the free spirits out of the frame, this fell out too. Written on the back of the photo is, couldn't make the reunion, wishing you well from Paris. Gwyn and the boys. Don't know which way round they are, is the problem. But they're both down here, clearly. Oop. Photo was tucked inside an envelope with a letter beneath a candle in the corner of his office. That letter says, "To Carl and Brenda, I'm sorry that you are unable to attend the funeral. It's traditional to have it as soon as possible, and Ernie, maybe more than anyone else on Earth, knew how busy your job could be. I've enclosed a Shiva candle identical to ours if you'd like to pay your respects, though it's not expected for those outside of the faith to do so. Ernie was a man full of love, not only for his family, but for his family's legacy. He had immense amount of pride for the work you three did together, as well as how Carl is carried on for him after taking over. As for myself, it's impossible to express my gratitude enough for reclusing us from the panic and burden of endless bills. We caught it too late for him to get on the donor list. The company took care of us beyond our wildest expectations. It went unsaid at the time, but Ernie and I knew it had to be Carl who convinced the trust, and that it was no coincidence that it happened shortly after your visit, Brenda. Up until the end, Ernie and I had to stay strong, especially for Nicole's sake. We could never have done that without the two of you fighting for us." Much love, Debbie. And oh boy, pictures. But as a note attached from your employer, every 20 or so years the Roottrees would hold a big reunion and recreate an old family photo. This is the one from the 70s, and Carl's the teenager in the middle. Sorry about the water damage, a pipe burst in Carl's office. On the back of the photo, in childish print writing, it says November. There were also a number of cursive signatures. Bonnie, next President Guy Hudson, Ernie Jr., Caroline, Gwyneth M., Gwendoline, Miracle Jr., Jim Roottree, Clark, Carl, and Ellie M. Oh boy. There's somebody here with a name tag. It must be Ellie M. Well, I think it's probably over here. Still, we also have a Miracle the Third, so let's just pop that in, because obviously. In order. G, E, C, M, M. They are. We also have Margalite in there already. G. As for the way around the images are, I'm really not so sure. Let's just try both ways round. One of them's got to be right. It's that way round. The good old return of the Obra Dinn try things, process of elimination stuff.
You're listening to It's time for your headlines. Once an hour, every hour, on the 45. It's a bizarre development to an already tragic tale. In the wake of the accident that took his life, some of Carl Roottrees' belongings have apparently gone missing. Most notably, a framed photo of the Roottree family from the mid-1970s that Carl had on his office wall. We interviewed a local psychologist about who would do such a thing and why. For that article, search online for WRTD News. Again, that's WRTD.
We think of our employer is not actually a family relative, or is somebody obscure down at the bottom. Interesting. Well, let me fix my photograph. WRTD News. Your local investigative jazz radio station. During their news segments at 45 minutes on the hour, they've been talking about the plane crash. This most recent hour, they also talked about a picture taken from Carl's office after the plane crash and promised an interview online with a psychologist. During the interview, it's revealed there wasn't a break-in. Instead, someone with a key to the office took the picture after discovering the pipes burst due to a recent storm. This means it's likely someone close to the family who was aware of the photo's history and wanted to save it. The psychologist, however, also goes on to posit the culprit had an alternative agenda, specifically because nobody in their family has come forward to say they have it in their possession. The comment below the article says don't believe their lies. This is just another instance of the Roottree curse being a real true thing. I bet you Carl was murdered and the picture had evidence on it. There's a long, rambling conspiracy website with a very small, very red text on a black background that says the Roottrees are cursed. It has been very recently updated with the following. Important update. With Carl and Brenda and their girls, that makes 5 new deaths. Not only that, but 3 of the 5 presidents of the Roottree company have died mysteriously. Mysteriously. They say Guy's car was hit by a drunk driver in 1982, but nobody was arrested. Then Eardy Madsen Jr. stepped down. Was he poisoned? Now just this week, Carl died in a plane crash. This cannot be a coincidence. There's another entry that claims if you connect the dots in the pattern of the 5 pieces wrapper, it creates a Mayan ruby skull, a secret message meant to subliminally scare people away. The post before that has a link to a site that talks about how Earth has 4-corner simultaneous 4-day time cubes. The author of this site seems to agree. An entry from a few months ago claims that the owner of the site received an email from Chris Raff 75 at prodigy.us asking him to take down his faked proof that Ernie Madison Jr. actually had a heart condition and wasn't poisoned. The owner claims that though the proof looks quite credible, he knows that the proof was fake because he's an expert at creating fake evidence. The first entry is from 1996 and has a blurry picture of the Roottrees Candy Family Company factory, seemingly taken by the website's author from behind a fence and through some trees. It seems that Operation RT-29 is real. I witnessed a helicopter land on February 29, 1996. Website footer says all images and ideas by Thomas Overwood. Highlighting, highlighting, highlighting. More conspiracy websites. Some people out there claim that the Roottrees are changing the candy recipe to include more and more chemicals and that this was done in cooperation with bad actors from the government. They claim that due to a loophole in the calendar, it's possible to get away with nearly any crime on a leap day so long as it isn't discovered until after the day is over, and that every 4 years on a leap year the Roottree Company hosts a meeting with foreign agents to conspire to poison our children. The proof is that Roottree candies contain polyglycerol polyrinsucralate, an ingredient of the candy that wasn't there when it was first released. They claim it's added in an attempt to addict people and eventually induce mind control. The website claims to sell pills that counteract this effect for children that have already eaten Roottrees candy in the past. You do an additional search for said chemical, and it seems to be an emulsifier in chocolates approved by the FDA and widely used across many products. Lovely. Well, none of this seems particularly relevant to anything. Let's stop going down this rabbit hole, shall we? Nothing relevant to the search. Okay, we have had a break, and we are back at it. Let's see, where do we want to go from here? You know, it would be real great if we could lock in you. Where else do we want to go from here? It'd be cool if I could lock in this bit of the tree. You know what? Let's open that back up again. And maybe let's go back over the few names that we have not crossed off of this list yet. It is very strange. We do not have Carl and Elias crossed off yet. What happens if I search this quote? Nothing. Ah. I don't think we ever looked up this, did we? This might be helpful. An avenue that we have not yet explored. Because it doesn't exist. Lovely. Is there something like inventor I can put in here? No. We always want to use their most recent occupation. I don't think retired is an option either. No. Travel agent, pro athlete. We have a couple of unexplored avenues here. Miracle Network, a production company run by the Miracle Roottrees estate. It's quite bare bones, but has the following blurb. Witness the testimonies of the Miracle's Roottrees. Miracle Roottrees arrived so late in his mother's life that doctors swore he wouldn't survive in his first year. His mother and father, Elias and Gwyneth, nicknamed him Miracle because they thought him impossible. He was younger than his brothers and sisters by over 14 years. With a birth that late, the final child of his generation was nearly torn apart by countless health problems, but still, with the power of God on his side, he persevered. He triumphed over those complications, and even regained his sight to spread the healing word of the Almighty. Okay. That was about this estate, then. Nothing relevant. We've got a new piece of evidence just from here, though, so that's pretty good. 23 years later, Miracle Roottrees Jr. arrived, and he became the famous family's second vessel for the higher power. At 18, he unburdened himself from the Roottrees name and took his father's testimony to a whole new level. Via the power of television, Miracle Jr. spread the gospel across the entirety of New England. He has since left the life of glamour and glitz behind to reach those places that need it most. The power of the Lord coming to a town near you. You have a flyer. And this just goes straight back here. Have we put in Edith yet? No. Edith Jacobson. Lovely. And we have flyer to look at. Children now welcome. Witness the power of the Lord. Number 96, 3 Generations of Miracles Tour, featuring testimony from the world-famous Miracle Jr. Celebrate with your pastor Miracle Third and his wife Nicole. This should be good. We have many pictures. And I guess he is a preacher as well, then. Nicole. There's two of them. Well, let's just put in one and we'll see if it's correct. It was. Fantastic. The phone is ringing.
So, you may have heard the news. Some of Carl's things have gone missing. That includes the pictures and mail I brought you earlier. I promise I didn't steal it, but I did borrow it. I'll return it once we're done. Let me deal with my family in the meantime. Oh, I guess that means I've officially confessed.
I guess you have.
I'm a Roottrees. I assure you I have a reasonable explanation for the secrecy. I'm about to do something big the family doesn't approve of. If you could just wait a little bit longer, I'll tell you more, in person. I'll return after 15 more blood relatives.
Lovely. Ooh. Yes, good. That clears that off the list. Ugh. Where to next? Where to next? Where to next? Well, there's a random name here we could look up. A music critic. Used to work for Modern Music Monthly. Cool. Let's look him up on here. The periodical added a review and interview from 1979 titled A Reluctant Hitmaker, Jim Goes Into His First Band. Until a few years ago, Diamond and I were in CJ and J&D with my cousin and his ex. Clark never knew his father, so our grandpop insisted he spend time with him and me. As a result, Clark and I grew up like brothers. Diamond and Jane, on the other hand, are actually sisters, so the four of us had a sort of cutesy family band thing going on. Not our finest hour. Regardless, when Diamond walked in on Clark in bed with her youngest sister, everything exploded. No more family band. The only thing Clark and I had in common was music, but even then we never agreed on what it should be. He was always more interested in catchy tunes, something you hum a week later. A controlled roll-in is like that, but that wasn't my goal. When he called me up and said he liked it, I took it as a sign I was going in the wrong direction musically. That made him laugh, but I'm trying to make art. I don't mind saying any of this because he'd agree. For most of the decade, he was a mess. But he's a lot happier now. He started Raffer tunes, and he's a much better jingle writer than songwriter. One of the benefits of our famous family is a massive company willing to be a client. That's also how my father was connected to Roottrees. All his old ad campaigns were hung on the walls over the record player, but I was never interested. I just went straight for the music. I guess Clark was paying more attention. Okay. Useful, useful. We already have Clark over here. I guess let's put him down as a musician also. Other ad campaigns. Advertising then, probably. LaRoe Jane and LaRoe Kim, huh? I'm gonna go Jane here, but I'm not totally sure it isn't down here. It's definitely one of these two, though. Still helpful. Nothing on there. In an article from 1968, you find a small section focusing on young, upcoming talent that Modern Music Monthly predicts will make it big. It has this to say about the LaRoes. The LaRoe sisters got their start doing session work for their great-uncle's record label. If you remember any songs from 1860 to 1865 that feature the voices of kids, they were probably involved. Back then, they were credited as the Lucky LaRoes. Now that he's passed, they moved on to bigger and better ventures and going by their full names. Diamond and Jane have been touring with some famous faces. Ever heard of the Roottrees? They're looking to release an album sometime in the new year. Youngest Kim is about to step onto a prominent role in Broadway, taking over for one of the children in Oliver. Lucky LaRoes indeed. It could be that. It could very much be that. It's either that or the other way round, I think. Is there anywhere else I can go with this right now? I could look up Clark, I guess. R-A-F-F-E-R-T-Y. Nothing. nothing here either. Well, that helped me fill in a tiny bit more of the chart. Don't we have a Butler County Times periodical? Small feature details a building that Elias Roottrees Jr.'s architecture firm worked on called Hunchetop House. Seems unrelated. Elias Jr. was Elias's oldest son. Well, yeah. We know that already. Oh, Pop Clancy. So this is probably Clancy Jr. here. See, Edward, Jacob. Caroline's sister is Gwendoline. Morden. Makes sense, they have the same surname. Cousin Bonnie. Share same grandparents, not same parents. So just someone else on this line, basically. Anyway, what I wanted to do is note these down, because this, I think, is important. This will help me determine who's on which line. Who do I have currently as a licee? It's clearly him there. And this photo should have James in it somewhere. Right, this must be Zach Warden over here, which is where the surname came from. Nothing relevant. Fancy Flavors was an addition to the 5-piece product line for less than a year in 1979. It was one of Guy Hudson's first and historically most cited move as president of Roottrees. In an attempt to cater more towards what he thought the average person wanted, Guy looked at his own wealth, which is often a source of envy for others, and decided to tap into the idea that if they added fancy flavours to 5 pieces, anyone could live like the wealthy. His philosophy led to a flavour in 5 pieces that was meant to mimic caviar. 5 pieces sold less that year than it had any other year, except in some foreign markets. It was very quickly announced that caviar was meant to be a limited flavour, and would go back to normal as soon as possible. Probably a wise move. Doesn't go anywhere new. Nothing. Do you have anything to say? You do. Guy Hudson, along with his twin sister, are no strangers to the public when it comes to Roottrees snacks. Both appeared in the company's advertisements as children during the Boys and Girls Agree era. Now, Guy is taking over the Roottrees company at the end of the year. Who would have known that one of these two adorable redheads, Guy credits his mother and father, Angie and Christopher, with providing his fiery do, arguing over everything but chocolate, would grow up to take the whole company. Guy's uncle and current president, Zachariah, has decided to take an early retirement to focus on traveling the world with his wife. Zach was quoted as saying, "Now that our daughters have started families of their own, Clara and I plan to reflect on a life well lived." Guy is new to the business world, but he's family. We at Roottrees have faith in his innovative ideas, and he's eager to share them with the world. We like to think that Boys and Girls Agree he's ready to succeed. This is a very useful article. Right. So this Zach is Zachariah. Yeah, fine. And over here is Clara. Angie and Christopher. And Zach is an uncle, so it's not up here. Guess they must be down here? But that is not what I thought earlier. $77. You two, presumably. Must be over here then, I think. Angelina Morden. Ugh. Ooh. This is strange, if this is correct. This is strange indeed. But okay. I'm gonna try it. Hey, Hudson? Guess it must be. Gonna go with that. Can't say I'm too confident though. Okay, let's try a search on here for Wilson. Nothing. Oh, Jim? I don't think Jim is placed yet. Jim. I know Jim has a child, and the only... James Morden? The Wilsons. Wilson Jem, Wilson Jason, Wilson Stephen. already placed all of those. Jessica, Katerina. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Did this go anywhere? Not really. Only that Ernie Jr. was a former president. And they're somewhere on this photo. Do I have Ernie placed already? Here's one. Miracle Roottrees and his son, who goes exclusively by Miracle Jr., have appeared in the Butler County Times a great deal over the years. Miracle Network, Yeah. That just goes straight back here. Bit of a dead end, then. Dr. Stephen Wilson. Aha! Here's a new path to walk down. Dr. Stephen Wilson is a pediatrician, practices north of Pittsburgh. Though there are a lot of Stephen Wilsons and Dr. Wilsons, this one apparently found a way to game the search results as he pops to the top every time. His website claims he's the pediatrician to the stars. The only evidence for this is he was apparently the doctor to the Roottrees sisters. There's a picture of him on his website, along with a picture of his 3 children. The 3 of them look as though the photographer was holding them hostage. Regardless, the photos have been added to your evidence. There's also a quote that, though credited to his child Jason, you suspect might not be written by a 10-year-old. My dad is the best dad in the entire world, and he treats every patient with world-class care. He will treat your children like he would me, my big brother, or my sister. Okay, well that upends over here. Because he has to be here. Let's go with Doctor. St. Catherine Wilson Gem. Well, let's look at that new evidence we got. Sister is clearly older. And there he is himself. Big brother and sister. Not totally sure that I know which way round they are. Let's put them this way round for fun. But I'm not sure whether or not that is correct. And I have no idea what their occupations are. Though it's 1998 now. This photo was taken in 1996. So he's 12. So I'm gonna go with that. obviously. Who do I have as Zach Wilson currently? Curious. Very curious. Let's go back to the evidence again. This is clearly wrong. LG is over here. Him there, I'm pretty sure. Clark. Who knows? There had to be something about this somewhere. A website about Raffertunes, Clark Rafferty LaRoe's advertising firm. On it there's an about page and you find a picture labelled with the inspiration for this famous Super Bowl ad campaign. Below that, there's more detail. Clark was in a department store getting a family portrait with his wife and children, and when his wife was trying to get his youngest Katerina to calm down for the picture, he had the idea for the Roottrees Super Bowl ad. Photo is now in your evidence. Well, we have a photo that we know is actually really definitely you. At some point he changed his name and added the LaRoe onto the end. That must be Jessica. The photo's probably fairly recent, right? So they are probably students. Well, we got a bunch of kids locked in. Brilliant.